Good morning or afternoon. Today is the 27th of January, and I'm coming with another Bible study today. Um, we're going to be in the book of James, chapter 2, starting in verse 2 and 3, and going from there. We're not really going to go to chapter 3 at all. We're going to stick really in just chapter 2 and stop there. Um, as always, with these messages, take them to the Lord. Present them to Him. Let Him show you whatever He would like you to show you about this, and that it is manifested from Him. Um, with that being said, I may sit in certain verses for a minute. I may skip around real quickly, but I'm going to break it down as God brought it to me. So, with no further ado, let's just go on and get started. So, we're going to be in James chapter 2, and first, I'm just going to read verse 2 and 3, and then I'm going to go from there. Verse 2 in chapter 2 says, For if there comes unto your assembly a man with a gold ring, a goodly apparel, and there come in also a poor man in vile raiment, and ye have respect to him that weareth the gay clothing meaning happy, good type of clothing, and say unto him, Sit thou here in a good place, and say to the poor, Stand thou there, or sit here under my footstool. So this is an apostle talking to one of the churches. This is what's going on, and he's speaking to his brethren, you could say, on pretty much get right. What are you guys doing wrong? But the way God's going to take me into this is going to be really, really different. So the way he took me into this, the Lord started showing me in verse 3, he started showing me that they make those who look and are poor sit in bondage. Okay. He makes them sit in a bird cage. Think about how if you were to have a footstool and you have your feet propped up and you tell somebody to get underneath that footstool, if you look at it and picture it visually, you're putting someone in a bird cage. You're locking them up and imprisoning them. You're putting them in a bondage. That's what is being spoken here to the poor, saying that you're telling them. First, I was shown that you're telling the poor that the poor are people to be put in a snare, and the poor you're telling them to be put in imprisonment. But also you're telling them to, hey, if you're supposed to stand here, you're supposed to be under my footstool. You're saying that you're putting them in bondage to the rich, because who's resting? The rich are. And you're saying that you're going to be oppressed by the rich. When these are supposed to be people of God, who are supposed to love unconditionally like God commands, and they're doing this in the assembly, they're doing this in front of God, they're doing this collectively, saying like, oh man, this guy's coming in poor clothing, go stand over there. Or just go sit there in a prison. While they're telling the rich who come in, oh, come sit by me, come sit next to me. Okay. We're about to get into a lot of what God has shown me in this, but this is like the background. This is the basis for where this study is going, all right? But what God also showed me is that when it says, come sit underneath my footstool, once again, that is like a bird cage or like a bondage, okay, to the rich, or an oppression from the rich to the rich. But also when it says, stand thou over here. God showed me that when he said stand, God was showing me that is giving the poor no rest. That is what is established in today. We see everywhere where the poor are oppressed and the poor are given no rest, even though they need it. Okay. What also God showed me is that in verse 3, it's this type of operation of someone acting this way. God showed me this makes you operate outside of who you are when you are chosen as heirs to God. When you're chosen as God's children and you're operating in this way where you're putting respect or judgment on who sits where or who gets oppressed or who is put in bondage, you are totally operating out of yourself. You're not called to operate that way, which we all understand. God says operate in love. But we're about to go into a deeper way that is established in this scripture, okay? In verse 4, it says, "Are ye not then partial in yourselves, and are become judges of evil thoughts?" Now, key word that God showed me in this is judges of evil thoughts. And so what the Lord showed me is that one person you want to set free or put in freedom, while another you want to lock up or oppress, when they are both men the same. Of course, we understand we bleed the same, we breathe the same, but based on this judgment of man sets people up in different types of orchestrations. What God was also showing me is that the judges of evil thoughts is because they create a divide, a division, a hierarchy when it doesn't have to be there. They create a divide, a division, or hierarchy when it doesn't have to be there. Once again, they are operating out of their purpose. Okay, this is why it is not good to judge. This is why judging others is from evil thoughts, because you're putting people in division. You are dividing people into places, and you're establishing a hierarchy of things when it's not even supposed to be there. Going into verse 5, it says, "Hearken, my beloved brethren, hath not God chosen the poor out of this world, rich in faith, and heirs of the kingdom which he hath promised to them that love him?" Now, right here, we're seeing who is the rightful judge. Of course, we know it's the Father. That is guaranteed. That's why he says, "Hearken, my brother, hath not God chosen the poor of this world?" God, when I was reading that, God really pinpointed the word chosen to me and had me sit on that. Okay. And what he showed me is that, once again, the rightful judge is God. And the rightful judge is already judging in this verse. The reason why is that because man can't judge because man can't keep promises. It says in the Bible that make your yea, yea, and your nay, nay, and swear by nothing. Don't swear by heaven or earth or beneath it, because you don't own it and it's not yours to swear by. All things are owned by God. Since man can't judge because man can't keep his promises, what God was showing me. And also is, why do men judge when God has already judged men based on the promises he gave prior to fulfilling it? Why do men judge when God had already said these are chosen people? When it says in verse 4, these are chosen people, the chosen, the poor of this world are chosen. That means God has already judged, and he's just coming to fulfill it. He's just fulfilling his judgment. So our judgment is null and void, because God has said you are chosen to receive the heirs of my kingdom. God had already judged you. You have already been divided and placed. This is because he is a God of promises as the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end. He has made the promise and judgment of all who coincide in that judgment. Okay, it's already established. Now, this is going to be another part of the basis for this study, okay? It's about to get really, really deep. So, but understand in verse 5 where we're sitting at, okay? We're going to read verse 6 and 7. 6 and 7 says, "But ye have despised the poor. Do not rich men oppress you and draw you before the judgment seats? Do not they blaspheme that worthy name by which ye are called?" Now, what God was showing me in this is many things. In verse 6, it says, "But ye have despised the poor. Do not rich men oppress you." It's an establishment. Once again, God is showing and saying to these people, you are operating out of what you're called. You're not supposed to be operating this way. What God was also showing me is that this is the Gentile rulership of being Lord over somebody. This is the rulership that Jesus, when he was walking around, he said, the Gentiles rule when their leaders rule. I mean, they overlord, they oversee. But the way Jesus is a leader, And how he rules is through servitude. Jesus says those who are first, those who are kings, those who are leaders, are the servitude or the servants of the people. They're there to serve the people, not rule. Once again, you're out of place, out of what you've been called to. Okay? Second thing is that God was showing me is that they despise those who don't hinder their freedom or oppress them. They're despising poor people who aren't going to hinder their freedom or oppress them like the good and rich people with the gay clothing. So it's a total backwards understanding. Why would you despise someone who isn't going to oppress you? Why would you despise someone who isn't going to take away your freedom? What God was showing me, the reason why they despise it is because it requires servitude to the poor. Because they're poor, you have to serve, you have to attend to their needs. And from the rich, you can gain. Once again, you see the type of judgment this is. It's not righteous, it's not good, it's not of God. It's a superficial one. One thing when verse 7 where it says, Do not they blaspheme that worthy name by which ye are called? Of course, he's saying, don't they blaspheme God? Aren't they blaspheming God? The same ones you want to sit beside you because they got money, or because they're wearing good clothing, or because they're clean. Aren't they the ones who are blaspheming the God you serve? Now, what God showed me, it's not that they blaspheme by their words. These people are blaspheming by their actions. Their actions of operation are automatically blaspheming God that they serve, okay? In verse 8, we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of where God was taking me. In verse 8, it says, If ye fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Ye do well. Now, we all know what that means. We've heard that. That's the whole entire commandments, the 10 commandments in one. That is literally that love meets. Love God first and then do number 8, verse 8, basically. But what the Lord was showing me is that verse 8, when you operate in this method, you remove this hierarchy of who gets the right judgment, who sits where, who is put underneath the footstool in the bird cage, who is put in bondage, who isn't. Doing this type of love and operating this type of love destroys that false hierarchy. It destroys the deception that is there. It destroys the judgment that we operate in. Okay? God also showed me that the judgment of man puts you in a false hierarchy, like I said, a deceptive pyramid. A deceptive pyramid. God's law puts everyone on the same plane. There is no pyramid of hierarchy with God. This is why God loves the same. This is why God judges the same. This is why no one is escaping anything from the Lord, because it's all the same for everybody. We're going to skip to verse, We're going to go to verse 10. In verse 10, it says, For whoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one, he is guilty of all. Okay? Very harsh, very raw, but very real, right? What the Lord showed me is that the law God keeps everyone on the same hierarchy is one plane. The judgment of man says that certain things can slide or get away with by assets or accolades or qualities you may have. In verse 3, we see that. It says in verse 3 again, And ye have respect to him that weareth the gay clothing. That means they judged based on clothing. And say unto him, Sit thou here in a good place, and say to the poor, Stand thou there, or sit here under my footstool. You see the hierarchy being established. You see that there's a tier level being made up. There's a division and a divide being established by man's judgment. When God is judging, there is no tier level. There is no hierarchy. There is nothing. Everyone's on the same playing field. All right. I'm going to go to verse 11 and 12. Verse 11 and 12 says, For he that said, Do not commit adultery, said also, Do not kill. Now Now, if thou commit no adultery, yet if thou kill, thou art become a transgressor of the law. So speak ye and so do, as they that shall be judged by the law of liberty. Key word is liberty. So in verse 11, of course, this is the law of love. This is how God operates in love. You either fully walk in it or you don't. That's it. In verse 12, God was showing me is to love one another and get out of the pyramid scheme. We've all heard that term. Oh, it's a pyramid scheme. This job is a pyramid scheme. This and that. God is showing me that the way man judges is a pyramid scheme. And we're about to get even deeper into what that is. In verse 13, it says, "For he shall have judgment without mercy, that hath showed no mercy, and mercy rejoices against judgment." Now, when I sat on this, I had to receive and just wait on the Lord to show me what this meant. And then God showed me that the judgment of man, or the pyramid scheme, doesn't have mercy like God does, due to what their judgments are based on. Okay, there is no mercy how this judgment is happening. Just go back to verse 2 and 3. Once again, that was the basis for this study. Mercy comes through understanding and grace that God has. Okay, so going back to 13, it says, judgment without mercy that has no mercy. This is the judgment of man. The judgment of man can never reach the mercy God has. Okay, this is why it's so weightless, this type of judgment man makes, because it's not fully defined in its totality it needs to be. We're going to go to verse 16 and close it out. In verse 16 it says, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body. What does it profit? So in verse 16 he's saying that pretty much he's talking about faith. How can you have faith without works? Faith without works is dead, okay? But also what he's showing me, God was revealing in this, he gave me this whole breakdown. And so I'm just going to read it how he was speaking it to me, how he was showing me to put it on here. So he said, your judgment profits nothing when God is judge. It's a weightless establishment of declarations benefiting no one. A waste of time building a house of cards from evidence of surface level understandings. That's how God gave it to me. Now, when I was reading 16, I instantly was seeing a vision the whole time. And it took me a minute to really, really understand it. So the vision I saw a house of cards. And I saw that this house of cards was built up like a pyramid. And in this house of cards, I saw it was only the cards that had the faces on it, like a king, a queen, a jack. I didn't even see an ace, but it was all the face cards, right? And the interesting thing was the only face card I saw clearly in this pyramid scheme, or in this pyramid of house of cards, was the Joker. The Joker card. And then I saw the Jack card, the Jack of all trades. You see what I'm saying? It's a total jacked up trade system. You can say it's literally that kind of trade system. So in this study, God is showing us and revealing that there is a false judgment going on. We live in a false system. We live in this system that says, okay, because you have these small accolades or these qualities, therefore you're going to increase to this, or you're placed here and here, when really it's all nothing. And that God is really going to bring down this house of cards. He's really going to bring down man's judgment to be fully abased into nothing. God is going to bring down man's judgment to a point where it is only his judgment left. Where that means the rich will look no different than the poor. The poor will look no different than the rich, okay? And there's going to be a judgment that is going to establish everyone the same. And it's going to abase a lot of people. So this is the study. this is what God was wanting me to give to you guys today. If this blessed you, I pray you share with anyone you want that would be blessed by it based off praying from the Lord. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. I love you guys, and I thank you guys so much for everything. And I'll see you on the next one.